Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My wife and I have been trying to have a baby for about 2 years. So when we got pregnant, we were over the moon, but also super protective about it. We'd had a miscarriage early on in our journey, so this time we decided to keep things quiet until we were further along. My wife is naturally tall and athletic. She's 5'10" and used to play volleyball in college. Even when she started showing, it wasn't super obvious, unless you really knew what to look for. She's got this dry sense of humor that I absolutely love, and she doesn't put up with nonsense from anyone. That's part of what attracted me to her in the first place. We were about 6 months along when this happened. We'd just finished our doctor's appointment where everything looked great and we were feeling really good about finally being ready to start telling people. We decided to celebrate by going to the fancy grocery store across town to pick up ingredients for a special dinner. You know, the kind of place where they have organic everything and the produce looks like it belongs in a magazine. We walked in and grabbed a cart. My wife was wearing this flowy top that kind of hid her bump, but if you looked closely, you could definitely tell she was pregnant. We headed straight to the produce section because she'd been craving this specific salad all week. I was over by the bananas, trying to find ones that weren't too green or too brown. You know how picky pregnant women can get about their food, when I heard this voice behind me. This middle-aged woman with short blonde hair was approaching my wife near the tomatoes, loudly congratulating her on something. She had that look, you know, the one that says she thinks she's everyone's favorite aunt, even though you've never seen her before in your life. My wife looked confused and looked around like maybe this woman was talking to someone else. She politely asked if they knew each other. The woman told her no, but that she could see my wife was expecting and how exciting that was. And then, I kid you not, this woman reached out with both hands like she was about to grab my wife's belly. My wife took a step back, but Karen was already in motion. The stranger gushed about how much she loved babies and asked when my wife was due, then asked if she could feel the bump. She didn't wait for an answer. Her hands went straight for my wife's stomach like she had every right in the world to touch a complete stranger. The audacity was unreal. Now here's where my wife's quick thinking and zero tolerance for nonsense came into play. Without missing a beat, she looked this woman dead in the eye with the most serious expression I've ever seen and told her she wasn't pregnant at all. She said she was just fat and thanked the woman for pointing it out. The effect was immediate and devastating. Karen's hands froze mid-grab, hovering about an inch from my wife's belly. Her face went from excited pink to ghost white in about 2 seconds flat. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The woman stammered something about how my wife looked pregnant, clearly flustered and trying to backtrack. My wife told her nope, she'd just gained some weight recently and really appreciated her noticing it. Karen stood there for what felt like an eternity, still holding her hands out like she was stuck in some kind of glitch. She kept looking between my wife's face and her belly, clearly trying to process what had just happened. Meanwhile, I'm standing there with a bunch of bananas in my hand, trying so hard not to burst out laughing that I probably looked like I was having some kind of medical emergency. My wife caught my eye and I could see she was fighting back a smile too. Karen finally seemed to realize she was still reaching for my wife's stomach and jerked her hands back like she'd been burned. She grabbed the nearest piece of fruit, which happened to be a cantaloupe, and clutched it against her chest. The woman tried to apologize, saying she thought something about the way my wife was standing or looking, but she couldn't even finish her sentences. My wife asked if she meant standing while female, because, yeah, she did that sometimes. That was the final blow. Karen's face somehow managed to get even whiter. She turned around without another word and speed walked toward the checkout lanes, still hugging that cantaloupe like her life depended on it. When she was out of earshot, I completely lost it. I was laughing so hard I had to lean against the banana display to keep from falling over. Other shoppers were starting to stare, but I couldn't help it. I asked my wife if she'd seen the woman's face, telling her she looked like she'd seen a ghost. My wife said that's what Karen got for thinking she could just grab strangers, and maybe next time she'd think twice. We finished our shopping and headed to checkout. When we were loading our groceries onto the conveyor belt, I noticed Karen 3 lanes over. She kept looking in our direction with this mortified expression, like she was worried we might come over and continue the conversation. When we walked past her lane on our way out, she actually tried to hide behind her cart, a full-grown woman hiding from us because she was too embarrassed to make eye contact. I have ADHD and my best friend is autistic. We've been friends since second grade, so we're talking about 13 years of friendship here. When we were kids, we were basically each other's only friends. You know how it is when you're different? Other kids didn't really get us. I was the hyperactive girl who couldn't sit still, and he was the quiet boy who had meltdowns when things didn't go his way. We just clicked. Now we're both 21, but our lives have taken different paths. I graduated college last year and moved into my own apartment. I work full-time at a company, pay my own bills, buy my own groceries, the whole adult thing. He is still in college and lives with his parents rent-free. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but I've started noticing that our maturity levels seem really different now. The problem started about 2 months ago. My friend became completely obsessed with this animated show called The Amazing Digital Circus. I mean obsessed. He would send memes about it in our friend group chat every single day. During our weekly hangouts, he'd spend half the time talking about the characters and plot theories. At first, I thought it was just a phase. Then he started pressuring me to watch it. He kept telling me I had to watch The Amazing Digital Circus and that it was so good. I looked it up and told him it really wasn't my thing, but I thanked him for the recommendation anyway. He wouldn't accept that answer and kept insisting I should just watch one episode. I tried to be polite and explain that I appreciated him wanting to share something he loved, but I just wasn't interested in that type of show. For the next 3 weeks, he brought it up constantly. Every time we hung out, every group chat conversation, even when we were just grabbing coffee. He'd show me clips on his phone, read me plot summaries, and keep insisting I'd love it if I just gave it a chance. I finally had enough and told him I got that. He was excited about the show, but I'd said multiple times I wasn't interested. I asked him to please drop it, but he just got more frustrated and said he didn't understand why I was being so stubborn. I explained that I wasn't being stubborn, I just knew what I liked, and this wasn't it. The whole thing was getting annoying, but I tried to be patient because I know how his autism works. When he gets fixated on something, it becomes his whole world. I've dealt with this for years, but then last week something happened that made me realize this wasn't just about his special interest anymore. We were hanging out at my apartment, and I was scrolling through YouTube while he was in the bathroom. When he came back, he saw me hovering over a video from my favorite YouTuber. He asked who it was, and I told him about this YouTuber I really liked. I explained that I've been following her channel for like 3 years now, and that she did these amazing video essays about media analysis. His whole demeanor changed. I could see it in his face. He started trashing her immediately. He said her videos were way too long and boring, and he didn't know how anyone could sit through that pretentious garbage. He went on to say her voice was annoying and that she just stated the obvious while acting like she was some genius. I was shocked and asked him what the hell he was doing. I pointed out that he'd never even watched her videos and asked why he was being so mean about something I enjoyed. That's when he dropped the bomb. He told me it was because I wouldn't watch his show. I just stared at him. I asked if he was seriously attacking something I liked because I wouldn't watch The Amazing Digital Circus. He said it wasn't fair that he shared something he loved with me and I just dismissed it without even trying, but that I expected him to be supportive of my interests. I told him those were completely different things. I explained that I never asked him to watch my YouTuber or pressured him about it. I mentioned her once and he immediately started trashing her. He shot back that now I knew how it felt when someone dismissed my interests. I had to explain that I didn't dismiss his show. I just said it wasn't for me, and there was a huge difference between saying no thank you and actively making fun of something. He crossed his arms and looked at me like a child having a tantrum. He said that if I were really his friend, I'd watch it because friends support each other's interests. I told him that friends also respect each other's boundaries. I'd said no multiple times, and he kept pushing. He got more dramatic and said it was just one episode, 30 minutes of my life, but apparently he wasn't worth 30 minutes to me. That's when I realized what was really happening. This wasn't about sharing interests or friendship. This was about control. He felt entitled to my time and attention, and when I said no, he threw a fit. I told him I was done with the conversation and that he couldn't guilt trip me into watching something I didn't want to watch. He said fine, but not to expect him to care about my stupid YouTuber anymore. I replied that I never expected him to, and that was the difference between us. He left my apartment in a huff, slamming the door behind him. For the next week, he gave me the silent treatment. He stopped responding to my texts and didn't show up to our usual coffee date. I was hurt and confused. 13 years of friendship, and he was willing to throw it away over a TV show? I started questioning everything. Maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe I should have just watched the stupid show. But then I talked to my sister, and she set me straight. She laid it out for me perfectly. He'd been harassing me for weeks to watch this show. I kept saying no politely, and when I wouldn't give in, he decided to attack something I actually enjoyed. When I put it like that, she said, it was manipulative behavior. He was trying to punish me for having boundaries. She was right. I wasn't being unreasonable for not wanting to watch a show that didn't interest me. And I definitely wasn't wrong for calling out his petty revenge tactics. Finally, yesterday, he texted me asking if we could talk. We met at the coffee shop where this whole thing started. He looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for him. He said he'd been thinking about what happened and admitted he guessed he was being kind of unfair. I asked him to clarify what he meant by kind of. He corrected himself and said he was being really unfair. He acknowledged that he shouldn't have said those things about my YouTuber because it was mean. I agreed it was mean, but told him it was more than that. It was manipulative. He was trying to hurt me because I wouldn't do what he wanted. He said he just felt like I didn't care about the things that mattered to him. I had to remind him that wasn't true. I told him I listened to him talk about his interests all the time. I'd sat through hours of him explaining anime plots and video game lore, and I'd never made fun of the things he liked. He said that was different, but when I asked him how, he couldn't answer. That told me everything I needed to know. I explained that I got he was excited about the show, but friendship wasn't about forcing someone to like the same things you do. It was about respecting each other's differences. He asked if I was never going to watch it, and I told him I might check out the first episode someday, but only if I wanted to, not because he was pressuring me. He said that was fair, I guess. We talked for another hour, and I thought we'd worked things out. But this morning he sent me another meme about the show with a caption saying I'd understand it if I watched it. I'm starting to realize that this friendship might have run its course. I volunteer at our town's annual harvest festival. It started when my younger sister broke her leg and couldn't help run our family's apple cider booth like she usually did. My parents needed someone to step in, and since I was between jobs at the time, I figured why not. What began as a favor turned into something I looked forward to every year. There's something special about seeing families come together, kids running around with sticky fingers from caramel apples, and the whole community gathering in one place. This year I was helping coordinate the vendor setup. The festival takes place in Memorial Park, and we always close off the main road that runs through it during the event weekend. There are clear signs posted everywhere warning that the road is closed to vehicles, that it's a festival zone with no cars allowed beyond a certain point, and orange barriers blocking the entrance. You'd have to be blind to miss them. I was helping the kettle corn vendor adjust his tent when I heard shouting from across the festival grounds. One of the festival workers was yelling that someone was driving through the festival area. I looked up and saw what was happening. A silver car was slowly making its way down the closed road, right through the middle of the festival. People were jumping out of the way, grabbing their kids, and pointing at the vehicle in shock. The car kept moving forward until it clipped the corner of the face painting booth. The whole structure wobbled and then collapsed sideways, sending paint containers flying everywhere. The woman running the booth barely managed to get the little girl she was painting to safety. The face painting vendor shouted at the driver, asking what was wrong with her and pointing out that the area was closed to cars. By now, a crowd was forming around the car. I ran over to help along with about 15 other people. The driver had stopped after hitting the booth, but she wasn't getting out of the car. Instead, she was just sitting there, windows up, looking straight ahead like nothing had happened. I called out to her, telling her she needed to get out and check if everyone was okay since she had just destroyed someone's booth. She rolled down her window just a crack and said she needed to get through because this was the fastest way to the parking lot. The festival coordinator explained that the parking lot was back the way she came, and that she had driven past 3 different parking areas to get here. He emphasized that this whole section was closed to vehicles. Karen replied that she was here now and told us to just move out of her way so she could keep going. Here she was, having just knocked over a booth and nearly hit a child, and she was acting like we were inconveniencing her. I told her she couldn't just drive through a festival, asking her to look around at all the families and explaining that she could have seriously hurt someone. Karen claimed she didn't hurt anyone and said that booth was too close to the road anyway. The face painting vendor angrily responded that this wasn't even supposed to be a road right now, and pointed out that Karen had completely destroyed her setup. More people had gathered around the car by this point. Parents were pulling their children back, but everyone was clearly upset. The festival coordinator was on his phone, presumably calling the police. He told Karen he was calling this in and that she needed to turn off her engine and get out of the vehicle. That's when Karen's demeanor changed completely. Instead of the annoyed but relatively calm person she'd been, she became agitated and angry. She yelled at us, demanding that we get away from her car right now because she had somewhere to be. I tried to calm her down, explaining that no one was trying to trap her, and she just needed to turn around and go back the way she came. But she wasn't listening anymore. I could see her gripping the steering wheel tighter, and there was something in her expression that made me uneasy. Someone in the crowd suggested getting her license plate number. Several people started pulling out their phones, some to take pictures of the license plate, others to record what was happening. That seemed to set Karen off completely. She screamed at everyone to get their cameras away from her, claiming we had no right to film her. The festival coordinator tried again, asking her to calm down and step out of the vehicle. Without warning, she gunned the engine. The car lurched forward into the crowd. People screamed and dove in different directions, but 4 people couldn't get out of the way fast enough. The elderly man who runs the honey booth went down first, the car catching his leg when he tried to jump aside. A teenage girl who'd been recording on her phone got clipped by the side mirror and spun to the ground. 2 other festival workers, a man and woman who'd been trying to direct people away from the vehicle, were both hit when Karen accelerated through the crowd. It happened so fast that for a moment, everyone just stood there in shock. Then the screaming started, not angry shouting like before, but genuine panic and pain. I yelled for someone to call 911 and that we needed ambulances. I rushed to the elderly man first. He was conscious, but his leg was clearly broken, bent at an angle that made my stomach turn. The teenage girl was sitting up, holding her shoulder and crying. The 2 festival workers were both on the ground. One was trying to sit up while holding his ribs. The other wasn't moving much at all. The festival coordinator called out that he was already calling for help and told everyone else to stay back and give the injured people room. People were pulling out their phones again, but this time to call for help and to make sure they had evidence of what just happened. At least a dozen people had gotten the whole thing on video. Someone asked if anyone had gotten her license plate number, and multiple people confirmed they had it. Another person announced they had gotten the whole incident on video. Within minutes, we could hear sirens approaching. The paramedics arrived first, followed closely by the police. They immediately took over caring for the injured people, while the officers started taking statements from witnesses. A police officer asked if someone could tell him exactly what happened. At least 20 people started talking at once, all describing the same sequence of events. The officer held up his hand and said they needed to go one at a time, starting with the festival coordinator. The coordinator gave a clear, detailed account of everything from when Karen first drove into the festival area to when she ran people down and fled. He explained that multiple people had video footage of the entire incident and that the vehicle had deliberately accelerated into the crowd after they asked her to leave. The police officer asked if anyone had gotten the license plate. I told him that several of us had gotten it and confirmed what the coordinator said about multiple people recording when it happened. The officer collected everyone's contact information and asked those of us who had filmed the incident to send the videos to the police department. The whole process took about 2 hours, during which time we learned that all 4 injured people were being taken to the hospital, but thankfully, none of the injuries appeared life-threatening. Later that evening, I was at home when my phone rang. It was the festival coordinator calling to tell me that they had arrested Karen. The police had gone to her house about an hour earlier. I asked what was going to happen to the people who got hurt. He explained that the hospital said the elderly man had a broken leg and would need surgery. The teenager had a dislocated shoulder. The other 2 had some broken ribs and fractures, but they should recover fully. He said it could have been so much worse. Over the next few weeks, I learned more about what happened to Karen. She was charged with 4 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, reckless endangerment, destruction of property, and several traffic violations. The videos from the festival were clear evidence of her deliberately accelerating into the crowd after people had gathered around her car. Karen tried to claim she was afraid for her safety and that the crowd was threatening her, but the videos showed otherwise. They clearly captured her dismissive attitude, her refusal to cooperate, and most importantly, her deliberate decision to floor the gas pedal when people started recording her behavior. She ended up pleading guilty to avoid a trial, probably because her lawyer knew the video evidence was overwhelming. She got 2 years in prison, had her license revoked for 5 years, and was ordered to pay for all the medical bills and property damage. The 4 people she hit all recovered, though the elderly man still walks with a slight limp. I work nights at a warehouse, which means my social life is pretty much limited to weekends. My girlfriend understands this and goes out with her friends regularly, which I'm totally fine with. She's got this group she hangs out with, some girls from her college days and some newer friends they've picked up along the way. I trust her completely, and she always fills me in on the drama later, which honestly makes for great entertainment. Last Saturday night was supposed to be just another normal girls' night out. They plan to hit up this trendy bar downtown that has karaoke on weekends. My girlfriend had been looking forward to it all week since work had been stressing her out. She's got this habit of getting distracted and leaving things behind. Keys, sunglasses, you name it. I'm always finding her stuff in random places around our apartment. It's just how she is. And I've learned to do a quick sweep before we leave anywhere. So she heads out around 8 p.m., looking great and excited to blow off some steam. I settled in for my usual Saturday night routine of gaming and ordering way too much takeout. Around midnight, I get a text from her saying she's having a blast and that the karaoke was hilarious. Everything seemed normal. The next morning, she comes home with this wild story. At some point during the night, she'd gone to the bathroom and set her phone down on the counter while she fixed her makeup. Being tipsy and caught up in the fun, she completely forgot about it and went back to rejoin her friends. She didn't even notice it was missing for over an hour. Here's where it gets interesting. One of the girls in their extended group, the Karen, found the phone in the bathroom. Instead of doing what any normal person would do and asking around whose phone it was, Karen decided she was going to keep it. She actually bragged about it to one of my girlfriend's close friends. Karen told her friend that she found the phone and was planning to keep it using the whole finders keepers mentality. My girlfriend's friend was shocked and told Karen she couldn't just steal someone's phone. She suggested they look through the photos to figure out who owned it. Karen argued back that if someone was dumb enough to leave their phone behind, that was their own problem. She said she needed the new phone anyway, so why should she bother returning it? My girlfriend's friend was completely stunned by this attitude. She recognized the phone case as my girlfriend's. It's this bright purple case with little cats on it that's pretty distinctive. She told Karen directly that she knew whose phone it was and demanded she return it. Karen refused and said no way. She insisted that since she found it, it belonged to her now, and that was just how things worked. My girlfriend's friend argued back that this wasn't how anything worked, and that Karen was basically talking about stealing. The argument got more heated, with Karen getting increasingly defensive about her twisted logic. When my girlfriend's friend reached for the phone to take it back to its rightful owner, Karen actually grabbed her wrist and tried to snatch it away from her. She was getting physical over a phone that wasn't even hers to begin with. My girlfriend's friend told Karen to let go and called her crazy for acting this way. Karen shot back that she wasn't giving up what she believed was rightfully hers now. She blamed my girlfriend for being careless and said that meant she deserved to lose her phone. My girlfriend's friend managed to get the phone away from Karen and immediately went to find my girlfriend to return it. My girlfriend was confused about the whole situation since she'd been dancing and hadn't even realized her phone was missing yet. When her friend handed over the phone, my girlfriend was shocked and thanked her repeatedly for finding it. She had no idea she'd even lost it. Her friend then explained everything that had just happened, with Karen trying to steal the phone and getting aggressive when confronted. My girlfriend was completely stunned that someone would actually try to keep her phone and then get violent when called out on it. She couldn't believe anyone would think that was acceptable behavior. But here's where Karen really showed her true colors. Instead of being embarrassed about getting caught trying to steal, she doubled down. The next day, she started posting on Instagram about the whole situation, but with her own twisted version of events. Her posts were something else. She claimed she was being unfairly labeled as a thief when she was just exercising her right to keep something she found. She called my girlfriend nasty names, saying she was a dumb drunk who didn't deserve to get her phone back because she was irresponsible enough to lose it in the first place. She went after my girlfriend's friend too, calling her names and saying she had no right to interfere. She posted that she deserved apologies from both of them for being falsely accused and assaulted when someone took the phone away from her. She painted herself as the victim in a situation where she literally tried to steal someone's property. Karen kept posting story after story, getting more and more worked up. She screenshot conversations with other people who apparently agreed with her twisted logic. She posted photos with captions about how people these days don't understand basic rules about finding lost items. Meanwhile, my girlfriend and I were just laughing about the whole thing. She got her phone back, nobody was hurt, and Karen was making herself look absolutely ridiculous on social media. We'd sit on the couch scrolling through her posts, amazed at how someone could be so entitled and lack such basic self-awareness. The posts kept coming for days. Karen couldn't let it go. She'd post in the morning about how she was still waiting for her apology, then post again in the evening about how modern society doesn't respect people who find lost items. She even posted some nonsense about looking up finders' rights laws, completely missing the point that those don't apply to temporarily misplaced items in private establishments. Other people started commenting on her posts, and not in the way she expected. Most people were calling her out for trying to steal someone's phone and then playing victim when she got caught. The more people disagreed with her, the more unhinged her posts became. By the end of the week, she was posting paragraphs about how everyone was against her and how she was the real victim in all of this. She blocked my girlfriend and her friend, but kept posting about them indirectly. Mutual friends were forwarding us screenshots because the whole thing had become such a spectacle. The situation resolved itself when Karen apparently got tired of everyone disagreeing with her and deleted all the posts. But the damage to her reputation was already done. People now knew exactly what kind of person she was. Someone who would steal a phone and then throw a public tantrum when called out on it. I'm a junior analyst, and the office I work at is your typical corporate setup, open floor plan. About 40 people spread across different teams, everyone constantly on calls or staring at screens. Your phone and laptop are basically life support systems because everything runs through digital platforms. My desk sits right in the middle of the sales team section. I picked this spot because it keeps me close to the action and helps me coordinate better with the account managers. Plus, there's a power outlet right at desk level, which seemed like a blessing at the time. I keep my workspace organized, laptop, phone dock, a few project folders, and my trusty fast charger always plugged in and ready. That's where my problem started. There's this guy on the sales team who sits about 4 desks away from me. Mid-30s, always wearing wrinkled dress shirts, the type who talks way too loud on phone calls. From day one, I noticed he had this weird habit of never being prepared for anything. No pen during meetings, always asking to borrow staplers, that sort of thing. But the worst part was his complete inability to keep his phone charged. This guy's phone dies at least twice a day, and instead of doing the normal thing, buying his own charger or asking to borrow one politely, he just helps himself to whatever is available. I first noticed it about 6 months ago when I came back from a client meeting and found my phone sitting dead on my desk while his was plugged into my charger, happily charging away. When I confronted him about it, he just shrugged and said he hoped I didn't mind, that he just needed a quick boost. I told him he should probably ask next time, and he agreed, thanking me like it was no big deal. I figured it was a one-time thing. It became a daily routine. I'd step away for lunch, come back to find my phone unplugged and his charging. Go to the bathroom, same thing. Attend a team meeting, and somehow he'd managed to snake my charger over to his desk while I was gone. Every single time he'd give me the same casual response about just borrowing it for a second and asking if I minded. The worst part was how he'd leave my charger. This guy had zero respect for other people's stuff. The cable would be twisted into knots, sometimes even wrapped around his desk chair wheels. Once I found it stretched so far that it was barely hanging onto the outlet. My phone dock would be shoved aside, my organized desk completely disrupted. After 2 weeks of this, I decided to say something directly. I asked him if he could maybe get his own charger, because I needed mine for my phone during the day. He brushed me off, telling me not to be like that and insisting it was just for a few minutes here and there. When I pointed out that yesterday he'd had it for 3 hours, he made excuses about meaning to buy one but not having time to get to the store. He promised he'd grab one that weekend. That weekend came and went. Then another, then another. Meanwhile, my phone was dying during important client calls because I couldn't predict when my charger would be available. I started having to ration my phone usage, which was ridiculous considering I needed it for work. The breaking point came during a busy Thursday. I had 3 back-to-back client presentations scheduled, and I knew I'd need my phone fully charged for potential follow-up calls. I made sure to charge it completely the night before, but when I got to the office, it was only at 60%. I'd forgotten to plug it in properly at home. No problem, I thought. I'll just top it off before my first meeting. Except when I got to my desk, my charger was gone. Not just unplugged, completely gone. I looked around and spotted it at his desk, with his phone attached and him nowhere to be found. I waited 10 minutes, then 15. My first client meeting was starting in 20 minutes, and my phone was dropping to 50%. I walked over to his desk and unplugged my charger. When he came back from wherever he'd been, he walked right over to my desk demanding to know what my problem was and saying he was using that charger. I explained that I had meetings all morning and needed my phone charged. He got defensive, claiming he had calls too. When I told him to buy his own charger, he called me selfish. Selfish. He called me selfish for wanting to use my own charger. That's when I knew I needed a different approach. Direct confrontation wasn't working, and I didn't want to escalate it to management over something that seemed so petty. But I was tired of being taken advantage of. That evening I went home and dug through my junk drawer until I found exactly what I needed. An old charger from my previous phone. This thing was ancient, probably from 2018, and it charged at the speed of molasses. I'm talking maybe 5% in 30 minutes on a good day. But it looked almost identical to my current fast charger, just slightly different branding on the plug. The next morning I swapped them out, put the slow charger in my usual spot, and kept my real one hidden in my laptop bag. I didn't have to wait long for the show to begin. Around 10:30 I got up to grab coffee from the break room. When I came back 5 minutes later, sure enough, his phone was plugged into my decoy charger and mine was sitting unplugged on my desk. I just smiled and plugged my phone into a portable battery pack I kept in my drawer. For the next hour, I watched him out of the corner of my eye. At first, he was his usual oblivious self, making calls and typing away. But around 11:30, I noticed him picking up his phone more frequently, checking the battery percentage with increasing confusion. He started unplugging his phone and looking at the charger with growing frustration, then plugging it back in and checking his phone again. I could see his patience wearing thin. At noon, he couldn't take it anymore. He came over and asked if my charger was broken, complaining that the thing wasn't charging at all. I acted confused and said that was weird because it worked fine for me. To prove my point, I unplugged my phone from the battery pack and connected it to the slow charger. After about 5 minutes, it had crept up from 78% to 79%. I pointed out that it was charging and he protested that 1% in 5 minutes wasn't normal. I shrugged and suggested maybe the outlets in this building were just slow. I could see the wheels turning in his head trying to figure out if that made sense. Meanwhile, I was secretly charging my phone with a real charger whenever I went to the bathroom or stepped away from my desk. The next day, same routine. He borrowed my slow charger, spent the entire morning getting increasingly frustrated when his phone barely gained any juice. By day 3, he was complaining about the useless electrical system in our building. Day 4 brought a new level of annoyance. He kept walking over to different outlets around the office, testing my charger in each one, convinced that some outlets must work better than others. He dragged the cable across the floor, disrupting other people's work, all while grumbling about how nothing in this place worked properly. I overheard him complaining to another co-worker about how the building's power supply was faulty and how his phone never charged properly at work anymore. The co-worker looked confused and mentioned that their charger worked fine, but he dismissed it, saying some outlets must be better than others. By the end of the week, his frustration had reached peak levels. He was constantly checking his phone, shaking the charger cable, and even blowing into the charging port like it was an old video game cartridge. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Monday of the following week, I noticed something different. He wasn't making his usual rounds to steal chargers. Instead, he was sitting at his desk with what looked like a brand new charging cable plugged into his phone. During lunch, I walked by his desk and saw the packaging from an electronics store sitting in his trash can. He'd finally bought his own charger. For the next few days, I kept my decoy charger out just to see what would happen. But he never touched it again. He was too busy being amazed at how quickly his new charger worked compared to what he thought were the building's faulty outlets. About 2 weeks later, I overheard him talking to someone on the phone about our office building. He was warning them about some kind of electrical problem that made phone chargers work really slowly. He went on this whole rant about how the building management should fix the wiring because it was affecting everyone's productivity. I never told him the truth. Why would I? He finally had his own charger. My stuff stayed exactly where I left it, and everyone was happy. Well, everyone except him, who apparently still believes our building has some mysterious power issues that only affect phone chargers. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.